Drunk, lonely virgin girl spends the night with the cold, wealthy millionaire, the man she hates the most. Now she was here, in his penthouse, wearing his shirt, with cameras outside, and no memory of what happened between that confrontation, and waking up in silk sheets worth more than a rent. Have you ever had a night you couldn't remember but couldn't forget? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She stood in that penthouse wearing nothing but a shirt, cameras flashing outside, and couldn't remember how her life had shattered in 12 hours. Have you ever woken up somewhere you didn't belong, with someone you couldn't stand? Picture this. You're 23, broke, and fighting just to stay in nursing school. Then you wake up in a billionaire's bed with no memory of how you got there. Tamara Brooks was about to discover that some nights change everything, especially when your enemy holds all the cards. What would you do if the man you despised most claimed you begged him not to leave? Let me take you back to where it all began, 12 hours earlier. The community clinic buzzed with nervous energy as staff gathered around a small television in the break room. Channel 5 was broadcasting live from downtown Atlanta, where tech mogul Nicholas Grayson announced his latest acquisition. Brooks Family Clinic will be restructured for maximum efficiency. His cold voice cut through the static. The camera captured his ice blue eyes, perfectly styled dark hair, and that smug expression Tamara had learned to hate from newspaper photos. Restructured means fired, whispered Maria, the head nurse. Half of us won't have jobs by Friday. Tamara's hands clenched around her coffee mug. She worked 3 part-time jobs to afford nursing school, and this clinic provided her only steady income. The man on screen didn't care about struggling students or sick patients who couldn't afford fancy hospitals. He cared about profit margins. Rich bastard, she muttered, then caught herself. Good girls from Newark didn't curse, even when their world was crumbling. By evening, her roommate Keisha was dragging her downtown to some underground bar called The Vault. You need to forget that stress, T. One night of fun won't kill you. Tamara rarely drank. She kept herself pure, focused, untouched by the chaos that destroyed other girls from her neighborhood. But tonight, watching her dreams slip away because of one man's greed, she needed something to numb the pain. The bar was dimmer than she expected, all exposed brick and whispered conversations. Keisha ordered shots, something clear that burned going down. Then another, and another. You're too uptight, Keisha laughed. Little. The room started spinning pleasantly. Tamara felt loose, free, reckless in a way she'd never allowed herself. Through the haze of alcohol and dim lighting, she spotted him. Nicholas Grayson sat alone at the bar, still wearing that expensive suit from the press conference. No bodyguards, no entourage, just him nursing what looked like whiskey. Liquid courage flooded her veins. Before she could think twice, Tamara marched over, heart pounding with rage and alcohol. You destroyed my life today, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. He looked up, those ice blue eyes focusing on her with unsettling intensity. Up close, he was younger than she'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp cheekbones and a mouth that suggested he'd forgotten how to smile. Excuse me, Brooks Family Clinic. You bought it. You fired half the staff. Then everything went black. Now she was here, in his penthouse, wearing a shirt, with cameras outside, and no memory of what happened between that confrontation, and waking up in silk sheets worth more than her rent. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had a night you couldn't remember but couldn't forget? What would you do in Tamara's shoes? Nicholas leaned against the floor-to-ceiling windows, shirtless and maddeningly calm. Atlanta's skyline stretched behind him like he owned it, which he probably did. You begged me not to let you go last night, he said, voice low and dangerous. Funny how selective memory works when morning comes. As she grabbed her clothes and ran for the elevator, Nicholas called out, "Check your phone, Tamara. You might want to see what you sent me at 2 a.m. The text message would haunt her for weeks. When a nursing school dean called her into the office Monday morning, Tamara knew her life was about to get worse. She just didn't know how much. The photos were everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, blurry shots of her entering Nicholas Grayson's building, leaving the next morning in wrinkled clothes. The comments were brutal. Gold digger. Sleut. Probably pregnant already. Dean Martinez sat behind her desk with pressed lips and disappointed eyes. Miss Brooks, these images are concerning. Our program maintains strict moral standards. I didn't do anything wrong, Tamara protested, though doubt clawed at her chest. What if she had? What if the alcohol had made her do things she couldn't remember? Perhaps not intentionally, but perception matters. The board is questioning your scholarship. Her scholarship, 2 years of perfect grades, working herself sick to stay in school, and now some blurry photos might destroy everything. Walking across campus felt like running a judgment marathon. Whispers followed her down hallways she'd navigated invisibly for 2 years. Now everyone stared, pointed, condemned. Her phone buzzed constantly. Unknown numbers, reporters wanting her story. One voicemail made her blood freeze. Miss Brooks, this is Jennifer Chun from Grayson Industries Legal Department. We need to discuss damage control immediately. That afternoon, she stood before a crowd of nursing students who'd gathered for what started as a study group, but became an impromptu rally. Someone had suggested she speak out, defend herself against the rumors. I don't care how much money you have, Tamara heard herself saying, voice carrying across the courtyard. No woman should wake up not knowing what happened to her body. The crowd cheered. Phones recorded. Within hours, the clip was viral. Hashtag Believe Tamara trending alongside hashtag Grayson Scandal. But late that night, alone in her apartment, she pulled up those text messages Nicholas mentioned. Her heart stopped. 2:17 a.m. I feel safe with you. 2:18 a.m. Don't let me go. 2:19 a.m. I've never felt like this. The messages were in her phone, sent from her number. But she had no memory of typing them. No memory of feeling safe with a man who destroyed her life hours earlier. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone had an opinion about your private life? How did you handle the judgment? Her apartment felt smaller each day, the walls closing in with whispers and stares. She'd worked so hard to be invisible, respectable, untouchable. Now she was Atlanta's most talked about scandal. The worst part wasn't the accusations or the threats to her scholarship. The worst part was the doubt eating away at her certainty. What if she'd wanted what happened? What if her body had betrayed every principle she'd held sacred? She was researching lawyers she couldn't afford when the knock came. 3 sharp raps that somehow sounded expensive. Through the peephole, she saw Nicholas Grayson standing in her hallway, still in his $1,000 suit, but with something desperate in those ice-blue eyes. She almost slammed the door. Almost. We need to talk about what really happened, he said when she finally opened it. Both our lives depend on it. The way he said both made her pause. Whatever game he was playing, apparently she wasn't the only one losing. He offered her a deal that would save them both or destroy them completely. Pretend to love the man she wanted to hate. Her tiny apartment seemed even smaller with Nicholas Grayson in it. His presence filled the space like expensive cologne and barely contained energy. He sat on a thrift store couch, like he belonged nowhere and everywhere at once. My board is calling an emergency meeting, he said without preamble. Your accusations have cost my company $200 million in stock value. Good. Tamara shot back, though her voice shook slightly. Maybe you'll think twice before destroying people's lives. And your scholarship review is Thursday. They're voting on your moral fitness for the nursing profession. Her stomach dropped. She'd hoped he didn't know about that. Nicholas pulled out his phone, scrolling through headlines. Tech Mobile's mystery woman speaks out. Billionaire accused of manipulation. David versus Goliath in Atlanta. He looked up. We're both trending. Neither of us for good reasons. What do you want? A solution that keeps us both from burning to the ground. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. 2 months. Convince the world we're together. Really together. And the scandal becomes a love story. Your scholarship stays safe. My company recovers. Everyone wins. Tamara stared at him. You want me to pretend to date you? I want you to pretend to be in love with me. There's a difference. I'd rather die than touch you again. Would you rather watch your mother's medical bills destroy what's left of your family? The words hit like a physical blow. Her mother had been gone 3 years, but the debt from her cancer treatment still haunted Tamara's credit report. How did he know about that? You bastard. I prefer strategist. Nicholas pulled out a folder, spreading papers across her coffee table. Your scholarship application mentions your mother's medical expenses. Public records show the remaining debt. It wouldn't be hard for the school board to question how you plan to handle financial stress while maintaining academic standards. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a solution. 2 months of public appearances, restaurants, charity events, looking happy together. In exchange, your scholarship stays intact, and I'll handle your mother's remaining medical debt. Why would you help me? Because right now, you're the villain in my story, and I'm the villain in yours. But if we're together, if this becomes about love conquering differences, we both become the heroes. Tell me in the comments. Would you make a deal with someone you couldn't trust to save everything you'd worked for? What would be your price? She wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed that trusting Nicholas Grayson would destroy her. But then her phone rang, financial aid office. Her scholarship was under review due to moral conduct concerns. Nicholas watched her face change as she listened to the polite but firm voice explaining the review process. When she hung up, his expression was almost sympathetic. You knew they would call, she whispered. I know how these things work. Scandal spreads faster than truth. He stood, adjusting his suit jacket. 2 months, Tamara. Save us both, or we both drown. Your choice. After he left, she sat staring at the papers he'd left behind. A contract that would either rescue her future or destroy her soul. Their first public appearance together was supposed to be acting, until the cameras caught something real neither of them expected. Bloom, Atlanta's most exclusive restaurant, hummed with the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths while camera flashes exploded beyond the windows like lightning in a storm they couldn't escape. Tamara had never owned anything suitable for this world. The black dress Nicholas sent fit perfectly, too perfectly. She wondered how he'd known her size, then decided she didn't want to know. Remember, he murmured as the hostess led them through the dining room. We've been seeing each other secretly for weeks. Tonight is our first public appearance because we're ready to be open about our feelings. His hand rested on the small of her back, warm through the thin fabric. Professional courtesy, she told herself. Nothing more. Smile like you want me, he whispered against her ear as they reached their table. Cameras clicked frantically from the sidewalk outside. I'm a better actress than you think, Tamara replied, but her breath caught when his thumb traced her spine. The waiter appeared with champagne they hadn't ordered. Compliments of the house, Mr. Grayson. Congratulations on your beautiful evening. Nicholas raised his glass. To new beginnings. They practiced this. She was supposed to smile, clink glasses, look adoringly into his eyes for the photographers. Simple performance. But when their glasses touched, when those ice blue eyes met hers across the candlelight, something shifted. The noise faded. The cameras disappeared. For one dangerous moment, it felt real. That wasn't acting, Nicholas said later, voice rough with confusion. Under the table, his fingers found hers, ostensibly for the cameras, but his touch lingered longer than necessary. His thumb traced her palm while they maintained eye contact for photos, and she fought to keep her breathing steady. When was the last time someone's simple touch left you breathless? Share your story in the comments. The evening proceeded according to plan. Nicholas was charming, attentive, playing the role of smitten billionaire perfectly. Tamara smiled, laughed at his jokes, let him feed her bites of dessert while photographers captured every moment. But beneath the performance, something electric hummed between them. When he brushed her hair behind her ear, his fingers lingered against her neck. When she placed her hand on his arm while laughing, she felt his muscles tense under her touch. You're good at this, he said as they shared creme brulee. At pretending? At making me forget we're pretending. The admission hung between them, dangerous and honest. Tamara felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. As they left the restaurant, paparazzi swarmed. Nicholas pulled her close, shielding her from the aggressive photographers with his body. When one got too close, shoving a camera in her face, Nicholas stepped forward with such quiet menace that the man immediately backed away. "Don't touch her," Nicholas said softly. The threat was clear without being spoken. In his car afterward, Tamara stared out the window at Atlanta's lights streaming past. "Thank you for protecting me back there. You don't need to thank me for basic decency." As his driver pulled away from the restaurant, Nicholas's phone buzzed with a message that made his face go white. "What is it?" Tamara asked. "Someone knows," he said quietly. "About the flash drive. About what really happened that night." The sender was anonymous, but the threat was clear. Stop the charade or everyone learns the truth. She went to his office to demand answers and found him vulnerable for the first time, a discovery more dangerous than any secret. Grayson Industries occupied 3 floors of Atlanta's most prestigious building. The elevator ride to the executive level felt endless, Tamara's reflection staring back from polished steel walls. She didn't belong here among the marble and mahogany, but she needed answers. Nicholas's assistant tried to stop her. "Mr. Grayson is in meetings all afternoon. Tell him his girlfriend is here," Tamara said with more confidence than she felt. "Unless he wants me making a scene in his lobby." The corner office commanded Atlanta's skyline, but Nicholas stood with his back to the view, shoulders tense beneath his perfectly tailored jacket. For once, the powerful Nicholas Grayson looked small against the vastness of his empire. "What flash drive?" she demanded without preamble. "What truth are you hiding?" He turned, and she was startled by the exhaustion in his eyes. This wasn't the composed billionaire from dinner last night. This was a man under siege. "Coffee?" he asked, ignoring her question. "Answers. Coffee first, then answers." He moved to a sleek machine in the corner, his movements mechanical. "How do you take it?" "Black, like my mood." That earned her a small smile, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him. "You know, I grew up drinking coffee black because we couldn't afford cream." The admission surprised her. "You grew up poor?" "Trailer park in Akron, Ohio. Single mother, 3 jobs, food stamps." He handed her the coffee, their fingers brushing. "Why do you think I clawed my way out? Money doesn't buy you worth. It just makes people pretend you have it. So what's the difference between you and me?" Tamara challenged. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "You still believe you deserve better." "I stopped hoping for that years ago." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. She'd expected arrogance, manipulation, not this raw vulnerability that made her chest tight with unexpected sympathy. When someone shows you their scars, do you run or do you stay? What changes when you see the person behind the power? They sat in his office as afternoon faded to evening, sharing stories she'd never expected to tell. He laughed at her tales about nursing school disasters, real laughter that transformed his entire face. She found herself studying the way his eyes crinkled, the rare moments when his guard dropped completely. The anonymous message, she finally asked. "What truth are they talking about?" Nicholas's expression shuddered. "That night at the bar, there's security footage." "Of what?" "Of you being drugged. Of me carrying you out. Of everything that happened after." Her blood went cold. "Someone drugged me?" "I think so. You went from tipsy to unconscious in minutes." That's not normal alcohol reaction. As evenings settled over the city, she found herself still in his office, sharing takeout Chinese food from containers that cost more than her grocery budget. When he walked her to the elevator, he stopped suddenly. "Tamara," he said, voice rough with something that might have been regret. "What if I told you I remember everything about that night?" Before she could answer, the elevator doors opened, revealing someone who would change everything. His ex-wife Madison, with a camera crew behind her and victory gleaming in her perfectly made-up eyes. When the nursing school dean called her into the office that Monday morning, Tamara knew her life was about to get worse. She just didn't know a reality TV crew would be waiting in the hallway. Have you ever had your past show up at the worst possible moment? That's exactly what happened when Madison stepped out of that elevator. His ex-wife looked like money and moved like danger. Blonde hair perfectly styled, camera crew following her every step, and that smile that promised destruction. The elevator bank transformed into chaos. Lights flashing, voices shouting questions, security rushing toward them. "Nicholas," Madison called out, her voice cutting through the noise. "Surprised to see me?" But what shocked Tamara wasn't Madison's arrival. It was how quickly Nicholas moved. 1 second, she was frozen in the hallway, cameras turning toward her like hungry predators. The next, his arm was around her waist, pulling her behind him like a human shield made of expensive suits and barely controlled fury. "Get those cameras away from her," he told security, his voice low and deadly. Madison laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. "Still playing protector? How sweet. Tell me, does she know about the others?" The cameras kept rolling. Tamara could feel them capturing every expression, every moment of confusion that crossed her face. But Nicholas didn't flinch. He guided her toward his private elevator, his hands steady on her back. "The only woman I ever failed to protect," he said without looking at Madison, "was one who tried to destroy everything I built. But her," his voice softened as he looked at Tamara, "she's not you. Do you know someone who brings out both your worst fears and your deepest strength? Someone who makes you want to fight battles you never thought you could win?" Inside the elevator, Tamara's hand shook. "Who is she really?" "The woman who taught me that love could be a weapon," Nicholas said, "and why I never wanted to fall in love again." The elevator climbed 40 floors, but the tension between them made the small space feel electric. His cologne mixed with her racing heartbeat, creating an awareness that had nothing to do with cameras or ex-wives. When he reached up to fix her hair, his fingers brushed her neck, and she realized the most dangerous part wasn't Madison's cameras. It was how safe she felt when Nicholas promised to protect her. "She's going to try to destroy us," Tamara said. "Let her try." His eyes met hers in the elevator's reflection. Some things are worth fighting for. The elevator opened to his office floor, but before they could step out, his assistant rushed toward them with panic written across her face. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," she said, holding out her phone. "It's already trending on social media." The video showed Madison in the lobby, talking directly to the cameras. Nicholas Grayson has a pattern. He finds vulnerable women, makes them dependent on him, then discards them when he's done. This girl is just the latest victim. But don't worry, I have proof of everything. As the video ended, Nicholas' jaw tightened. But Tamara surprised herself by stepping closer to him instead of backing away. "Then we better make sure our story is louder than hers," she said. "Because sometimes the only way to survive a war is to stop running from the battle." She found the security footage by accident while looking for the bathroom in his building's basement level. Have you ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about someone you cared about? The monitors glowed green in the security office, showing different angles of the building's entrance from 3 weeks ago. Tamara only glanced at them because she was lost, trying to find her way back to the elevator. But then she saw herself on screen, stumbling out of an Uber, clearly intoxicated, while Nicholas waited by the building's entrance. Waited, not coincidentally passing by, not accidentally running into her. Waiting. Her stomach dropped as she watched the footage continue. There was Nicholas checking his watch, looking toward the street like he expected someone. And then there she was, exactly on time for whatever plan he'd made. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. She remembered getting to the speakeasy around 10 p.m., which meant he'd known exactly when she'd be there, exactly how much she'd drink, exactly when she'd leave. "Find what you were looking for." His voice behind her made her jump. Nicholas stood in the doorway of the security office, his face unreadable in the green glow of the monitors. "You knew," Tamara said, her voice barely a whisper. "You planned all of it." "I planned the meeting," he admitted, stepping into the room. "The rest, that was real." "The rest?" She turned to face him, fury building in her chest like a fire that had been fed gasoline. "The rest was me, drunk and stupid, falling into your trap like some pathetic girl who believes in fairy tales. Have you ever felt your heart break and your anger explode at the same time? When trust shatters, it cuts deeper than any knife. You don't understand. I understand perfectly." She pushed past him toward the door, but he caught her wrist. "Tamara, listen to me. Let go." Her voice was ice and fury combined. "Let go of me right now." The bar you went to that night, I own it. The words hit her like a physical blow. She stopped trying to pull away, stopped breathing for a moment. Your roommate who suggested you go there? She's been getting money from my company for months. The drinks that were stronger than usual? I made sure the bartender knew exactly what to serve you. Each revelation felt like another door slamming shut, trapping her in a maze she'd never seen coming. But when I saw you that night, really saw you, everything changed. He continued, his grip on her wrist gentle but desperate. You were supposed to be just another business transaction, a problem to solve. But then you looked at me with those eyes full of fire and intelligence, and You what? Tamara jerked her arm free. You decided to play with me a little longer? I decided I didn't want to let you go. The words hung between them in the green-lit darkness. But instead of melting her anger, they made it burn hotter. You don't get to orchestrate someone's feelings and then claim they're real, she said. You don't get to manipulate every moment we've shared and then tell me it means something. She walked toward the elevator, her heels clicking against the concrete floor like countdown to an explosion. There's more, Nicholas called after her. About that night. About what really happened after I brought you upstairs. Her finger hovered over the elevator button. Because sometimes the truth you're afraid to hear is the only thing that can set you free. The flash drive contained footage that made her sick to her stomach, but not for the reason she expected. What would you do if you discovered the person you hated had been protecting you all along? Nicholas' penthouse security cameras had captured everything from that night 3 weeks ago. Tamara watched herself stumbling through his front door, clearly drugged with something stronger than alcohol. Her movements were wrong, too loose, too disconnected, like a puppet with cut strings. But it was what Nicholas did next that made her world shift completely. Instead of taking advantage of her condition, he caught her when she nearly fell, carried her to his guest bedroom, brought her water and crackers, sat in a chair across the room until she finally stopped mumbling and fell asleep. You never touched me, Tamara whispered, watching the footage of him covering her with a blanket before leaving the room. Someone spiked your drink with something designed to make you compliant, Nicholas said, his voice rough. By the time I realized what was happening, you were already unconscious. The next piece of footage showed the real shock. Madison, entering the penthouse at 2 a.m. with a key she shouldn't have had, taking photos of Tamara in the guest bed, arranging them to look compromising, planting evidence that suggested things that never happened. She set this whole thing up, Tamara said, the pieces finally clicking together. The bar, the drinks, everything. Madison knew I'd been watching her clinic, planning to make an offer for the building. She thought if she could create a scandal involving you, it would force me to back away from the deal. 2 birds, 1 stone, destroy my reputation and protect her investment in the competing property. Have you ever realized that the person you blame for your pain was actually the one trying to save you from it? Tamara sank into the couch, her mind racing. But why protect me? You didn't even know me. Because when I saw you at that press conference, calling me out for destroying people's livelihoods, you were the first person in years who looked at me and saw past the money. You saw someone who needed to be held accountable. And I respected that, even when I hated you for it. The irony hit her like a truck. She'd spent weeks believing he'd assaulted her, when he'd actually been the one person trying to protect her from assault. So, the morning after, when you said I begged you not to leave, you did, but you were delirious, asking me not to let them hurt you. I think part of you knew someone had drugged you, even if you couldn't remember clearly. The footage continued, showing Madison taking more photos, rearranging furniture, creating a crime scene out of kindness. She leaked the photos to your school, didn't she? Nicholas nodded, and when that didn't destroy me fast enough, she escalated. The fake relationship was the only way I could think of to keep you close enough to protect, while figuring out how to expose the truth. Tamara looked at him, sitting across from her. This man she'd hated and feared and finally started to care about. You could have just told me. Would you have believed me? The honest answer is no. She'd been too angry, too hurt, too ready to believe the worst. But now she had to decide what to believe about everything that came after. Madison's offer arrived in a text message at exactly midnight. Meet me tomorrow. I can give you everything you've ever wanted, and revenge against the man who manipulated you. Have you ever been offered everything you thought you wanted, only to realize you'd have to give up the one thing that actually mattered? The rooftop bar overlooked Atlanta's glittering skyline. Madison waiting at a corner table with champagne already poured. She looked like success wrapped in designer clothes and dangerous smiles. "Tamara, darling," she said, standing to offer air kisses that felt like poison. "You look beautiful. Love certainly agrees with you, even if it's built on lies. What do you want?" Tamara sat down, but didn't touch the champagne. "To save you from making the biggest mistake of your life." Madison slid a tablet across the table. Nicholas Grayson's net worth, his assets, his weaknesses, everything you need to take half of everything he owns. The numbers on the screen made Tamara's eyes widen. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Properties in 12 countries. Investment portfolios that could fund small nations. All you have to do is testify that he coerced you into this fake relationship, that he threatened your scholarship, your future, your safety. The media is already primed to believe it, thanks to his history of aggressive business tactics. Do you know what it feels like to be offered the chance to destroy someone who hurt you, even when you're not sure who actually hurt you anymore? Madison leaned forward, her voice dropping to conspiracy level. He's been planning to discard you anyway. Men like Nicholas don't marry women like you. They collect them like art pieces until they get bored. This way, at least you get paid for your pain. Women like me? Poor, black, dispensable. Madison's smile never wavered. "I'm offering you the chance to be powerful instead." The words stung because they echoed every insecurity Tamara had ever felt. Every time she'd looked around his penthouse and wondered what she was doing there. Every time his business associates looked through her like she was invisible. $2 million up front, Madison continued, plus a percentage of whatever we can take from him in court. You'll never have to worry about money again. Tamara thought about her student loans, her mother's medical bills that still haunted her credit, the scholarship she'd nearly lost because of this mess. And she thought about Nicholas carrying her unconscious form away from danger, sitting in a chair all night to make sure she was safe. The way he looked at her like she was worth protecting, worth fighting for. He recorded everything, didn't he? Tamara asked suddenly. Madison's smile faltered. What? The security cameras in his apartment. He has footage of you planting evidence that night. The silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. That footage could be edited, manipulated, but it wasn't. Tamara stood up, leaving the champagne untouched. And you know it. You're making a mistake, Madison called as she walked away. He'll destroy you eventually. Men like him always do. Tamara paused at the elevator. Maybe, but that's my choice to make, not yours. Because sometimes the biggest risk isn't trusting someone who might hurt you. It's refusing to trust someone who's already proven they won't. The boardroom felt like a courtroom where they were both on trial. Have you ever had to defend someone you love in front of people who've already decided they're guilty? 12 of the most powerful people in Atlanta's business community sat around the mahogany conference table, each one holding Nicholas' fate in their manicured hands. The emergency board meeting had been called after Madison's latest media blitz, complete with leaked audio of Tamara supposedly admitting the relationship was fake. Nicholas sat at the head of the table, his usual commanding presence diminished by the weight of accusations swirling around him. His company's stock had dropped 30% overnight. 3 major clients had already pulled their contracts. The board wanted blood. The situation has become untenable, announced Patricia Westbrook, the board's chairwoman. The scandal is affecting every aspect of our business operations. That's when Tamara walked through the boardroom doors. She hadn't been invited. Security had tried to stop her. But sometimes love makes you brave enough to crash parties where you don't belong. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I believe you're making decisions based on information that isn't true." The room went silent. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward her like spotlights, dissecting everything from her off-the-rack dress to her nervous hands. "Miss Brooks," Patricia said coldly, "this is a private meeting, about a private relationship that's been made very public," Tamara replied, moving to stand beside Nicholas' chair. and I think I have the right to speak about my own life. Do you know what it feels like to be the only person in a room full of power who has nothing to lose? It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. You want to know what kind of man Nicholas Grayson is? Tamara addressed the table, her voice growing stronger with each word. He's the kind who protects women he has every reason to hate, who chooses truth over profit, who builds people up instead of tearing them down. She pulled out her phone, connecting it to the room's display system. Madison Grayson drugged me at a bar her company owns, then broke into Nicholas' apartment to plant evidence of an assault that never happened. This is the security footage that proves it. The room watched in stunned silence as the truth played out on screen. Madison entering with a stolen key, arranging fake evidence, taking photos designed to destroy lives. Every accusation against Nicholas has been part of an elaborate scheme to steal his company, Tamara continued. And I was supposed to be the weapon she used to do it. Board member David Shun leaned forward. Why should we believe you now, when you've changed your story multiple times? Because I'm not here for money or revenge or business deals, Tamara said. I'm here because I've watched this man face the possibility of losing everything he's built, and his first concern was still protecting me from the fallout. She looked down at Nicholas, seeing pride and fear warring in his eyes. The media wants you to believe that powerful men can't change, can't grow, can't choose love over control. But I've seen him choose me over his reputation, truth over convenience, building over destroying. If that's not the kind of leadership you want, then you don't deserve the empire he created. The vote was unanimous. Nicholas would remain as CEO, but as they left the boardroom together, Tamara couldn't shake the feeling that winning this battle might have cost them something else entirely. The evening news was already spinning their victory into a new kind of scandal. Gold digger or Stockholm syndrome, the psychology of defending your abuser. Sometimes saving someone means sacrificing yourself in ways you never expected. Victory felt hollow when the woman he loved became the most hated person on social media for defending him. Have you ever won a battle only to discover you'd lost something more important in the process? Tamara's apartment building was surrounded by protesters with signs calling her a liar, a gold digger, worse. Her neighbors had started a petition demanding her eviction. The nursing school dean called twice asking if she needed psychological evaluation for her erratic behavior. Nicholas found her sitting on the fire escape, watching strangers below wave signs with her face crossed out in red marker. I made you into the villain by defending me, he said, climbing out the window to sit beside her. No, Tamara replied, not looking away from the crowd. They made me the villain for choosing to love you. There's a difference. The city lights painted her face in amber and shadow, but he could see the exhaustion in every line of her body. 3 days since the boardroom confrontation, and the media had turned her into a case study for everything wrong with modern women. Maybe we should disappear for a while, Nicholas said. I have houses and places where no one would find us. Running away won't change their minds about me. I don't care about their minds. I care about yours. For the first time in days, she looked at him, really looked like she was trying to memorize his face. Do you know what the hardest part is? She asked. Tell me. Sometimes I wonder if they're right. If I'm just some girl who got manipulated by a rich man with pretty promises. If everything I feel for you is real or just Stockholm syndrome dressed up as love. The words hit him harder than any board meeting, any media attack, any financial loss. Do you know what it's like to watch the person you love question their own feelings because the world tells them they're wrong? What can I do to prove this is real? Nicholas asked. You can't prove feelings, Tamara said. That's what makes them terrifying. He reached for her hand, tracing the lines of her palm like he was reading a map to somewhere safe. Then let me prove actions, he said. Tomorrow morning, I'm announcing my resignation as CEO. What? No. She turned to face him fully. That's exactly what Madison wanted. Madison wanted to destroy me through you. But I'm choosing to rebuild myself with you instead. Nicholas, I'm starting a foundation. Healthcare access, education, funding, community development. The kind of work that actually matters. And I want you to run it with me. Not as my girlfriend, not as some rescued victim, but as my partner. Equal stake, equal say, equal power. The protesters below continued their chanting, but their voices seemed smaller suddenly, less important than the space between two people choosing each other despite the noise. You'd give up everything you built? Tamara asked. I'd trade everything I built for everything we could build together. She was quiet for a long moment, city sounds filling the silence. Then she smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her in days. Okay, she said, let's build something beautiful. When they climbed back through the window, Nicholas pulled her close, and their coming together was desperate and healing, bodies speaking truths that words couldn't hold. Because sometimes love isn't about the fairy tale. It's about choosing each other when the whole world says you shouldn't. The pregnancy test arrived with no explanation, but the implications threatened to destroy everything they'd fought to build. What would you do if your most private moment became someone else's public weapon? The package appeared outside Tamara's door on a Tuesday morning. No return address, no delivery signature required. Inside was a positive pregnancy test with a note. Check your email. Some gifts keep giving. Tamara stared at the plastic stick, her hands shaking. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago, right around the time of her supposed night with Nicholas. But she knew the truth now. She knew nothing had happened between them that night, which meant someone was lying. Again, her laptop chimed with an email from an anonymous account. Thought you might want to see this before the morning news does. The attachment was a medical report, allegedly from her doctor's office, showing positive pregnancy results. It looked official, complete with letterhead and signatures. It also was completely fake. Nicholas, she called, her voice barely steady. He emerged from the kitchen, coffee in hand. One look at her face making him set the cup down fast. What happened? She showed him the test, the email, the fabricated medical records. Someone's trying to make it look like I'm pregnant with your baby. His jaw tightened as he read the email. Madison, how can you be sure? Because this is exactly how she operates. Create a crisis, then offer to solve it for a price. Have you ever felt like your life was being written by someone else and you couldn't grab the pen back? Nicholas was already on his phone, calling his security team, his lawyers, his crisis management people. But Tamara felt paralyzed, staring at this fake evidence of a fake pregnancy from a night that never happened the way anyone claimed. We need to get ahead of this, Nicholas said, ending his call. Statement to the press, medical examination to prove it's false, legal action against whoever created the fake records. What if they don't believe us? Tamara asked, what if people think we're lying about this too? Then we handle it the same way we've handled everything else. Together. But even as he said it, Tamara could see the strain around his eyes. Every scandal took something from him, from them, from the relationship they were trying to build in public view. 2 hours later, they sat in Dr. Martinez's office, waiting for blood test results that would prove what they already knew. The waiting room hummed with normal people dealing with normal problems. Pregnancy scares that were real, relationships that existed in private, love that didn't have to justify itself to strangers. If the test comes back negative, Tamara said, quietly, they'll say we got an abortion to hide the evidence. And if it comes back positive through some miracle? Nicholas asked. They'll say we're using a baby to legitimize a fake relationship. Do you see how some battles can't be won, only survived? Dr. Martinez returned with results that surprised no one. Negative pregnancy test, no sign she'd ever been pregnant recently. But as they left the clinic, a photographer captured them walking out together, his hand protective on her back. The headline would read, after secret clinic visit, tech mogul and accused victim remains silent on pregnancy rumors. Sometimes the truth doesn't matter as much as the story people want to believe. They offered him everything he'd built in exchange for the one thing he couldn't lose, her. Have you ever been forced to choose between your life's work and your life's love? The private jet waited on the tarmac like a silver escape pod, engines humming with the promise of somewhere else, somewhere they could start over without Atlanta's judgment following them like shadows. Switzerland, Nicholas said, showing her the plane tickets. My lawyers found a legal loophole. If I relocate the company headquarters overseas and you enroll in medical school there, the media circus loses its American audience. Tamara stared at the tickets, her name printed in elegant script next to his. You'd leave everything? I'd leave everything to protect you from this. The offer was tempting. 3 months of constant media attention had worn them both down to raw nerves and sleepless nights. Every grocery store trip became a photo opportunity. Every restaurant dinner turned into speculation about their relationship status. Privacy had become a luxury they couldn't afford. But as she looked at the plane, waiting to carry them away from everything, Tamara felt something shift inside her chest. What if we don't run? She asked suddenly. Nicholas paused in reviewing flight documents. What? What if we stay and build something better than what they're trying to destroy? With what resources? My company stock is still down 40%. Your reputation is... My reputation is that I'm a woman who stood up for what she believed in, Tamara interrupted. Even when it cost me everything. Maybe that's not such a bad reputation to have. Do you know what it feels like to realize you're stronger than you thought? That the thing you feared most, public judgment, can't actually kill you? She pulled out her phone, showing him news articles from the past week. Look at these comments. Not all of them, but some. Women saying I inspired them to speak up in their own situations. Students saying I made them think about what real love looks like versus what manipulation feels like. Nicholas read over her shoulder, his expression shifting as he saw the positive responses mixed in with the hate. What are you suggesting? That we use our story to help people tell their own stories? That we create something meaningful from all this mess? The plane's engines grew louder, pilot probably wondering why his passengers hadn't boarded yet. A nonprofit? Nicholas asked. A movement? Relationship education, consent awareness, helping people recognize the difference between love and manipulation. We've lived through both sides of it. We could teach people what to watch for. And stay in Atlanta to do it. Stay and fight for the city that's been our battlefield, Tamara said. Turn all this negative attention into positive change. Nicholas looked from the plane tickets to her face, something like amazement in his eyes. You want to take the worst thing that happened to us and make it help other people? I want to prove that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. That people can grow, change, choose better. That a relationship that started wrong can become something right. He tore up the plane tickets, letting the pieces scatter in the airport wind. Then let's change the world instead of running from it. They'd spent months hiding from the truth. Now they were about to broadcast it to the world and let the pieces fall where they wanted. Have you ever decided to tell your whole story, knowing some people would hate you for it, but hoping others might understand? The television studio lights blazed like exposure therapy for secrets. 3 cameras trained on the couch where they sat hand in hand, ready to let America decide their fate. This is your chance to set the record straight, the host said, settling into her chair across from them. Millions of people have opinions about your relationship. What do you want them to know? Tamara squeezed Nicholas' hand, drawing strength from the calluses she'd learned came from his teenage years working construction before tech money changed his life. We want them to know that love stories aren't always pretty, she said. Sometimes they start with mistakes, manipulation, and misunderstandings. But that doesn't mean they can't become something real. People say you manipulated her, the host said to Nicholas. I manipulated the situation that brought us together, Nicholas replied. I won't lie about that. But I couldn't manipulate how I fell in love with her strength, her intelligence, her refusal to be bought or bullied. That was real, probably the only real thing in my life at the time. And you? The host turned to Tamara. Critics say you're experiencing Stockholm Syndrome, that you've been brainwashed into defending your abuser. I fell in love with a man who learned how to be worthy of love, Tamara said. That's not manipulation, that's transformation. And yes, it took me time to see the difference. The interview continued for 30 minutes, covering everything from Madison's schemes to the fake pregnancy scare to their decision to start the foundation together. Do you know what it feels like to bare your soul to strangers and hope they don't use it to destroy you? One final question, the host said as they neared the end. What would you say to young women watching who might be in similar situations? That your feelings are valid, even when they're complicated, Tamara replied. That love should make you stronger, not smaller. That if someone has to isolate you from friends and family to keep you, that's not love, that's control. And that people can change, Nicholas added, but only if they do the work to change. Words don't mean anything without actions to back them up. The host smiled. Any future plans you'd like to share? Nicholas stood up suddenly, reaching into his jacket pocket. The cameras followed his movement as he dropped to one knee beside Tamara's chair. Actually, yes, he said, opening a ring box. Tamara Brooks, you've already saved my life in every way that matters. Will you let me spend the rest of mine proving I deserve the gift of loving you? The ring wasn't flashy or huge, a simple solitaire that caught the studio lights like captured starlight. But it was chosen for her, not for cameras or appearances or anyone else's opinion. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course, yes. America watched Nicholas Grayson slip an engagement ring onto Tamara Brooks' finger. And for the first time in months, the comments were mostly positive. But the real surprise would come 6 months later, when their wedding became the most watched live stream of the year. Not because of scandal, but because of hope. Sometimes the best love stories are the ones that teach people to believe in love again. 1 year later, she stood in the clinic where it all began, not as a part-time worker desperate for hours, but as co-founder of the Brooks Grayson Foundation, changing the system that almost broke her. Have you ever returned to the place where your life fell apart, only to realize it was actually where your life began? The clinic's reopening ceremony blazed with camera flashes and genuine smiles, community members mingling with tech executives, proving that some bridges don't just connect worlds, they create new ones. Tamara wore a simple navy dress that accommodated the small bump she now carried. 6 months pregnant with the baby they'd chosen to create together, not one manufactured by someone else's lies. Nicholas stood beside her, no longer the cold tech mogul who'd bought this building to close it down, but the man who'd helped her transform it into something better. When we first met, Tamara told the crowd gathered for the ribbon cutting, it was in anger. I saw him as everything wrong with how powerful people treat vulnerable communities. He saw me as an obstacle to business efficiency. Laughter rippled through the audience. They all knew the story by now, had watched it play out in real time across social media and news cycles. But sometimes the people who challenge us most are exactly who we need to become who we're meant to be, she continued. The Brooks Grayson Foundation had opened 12 community health centers in the past year, funded education programs in underserved neighborhoods, and created a scholarship fund specifically for students who'd faced academic challenges due to personal crises. Their love story had become a business model for social change. Do you know what it feels like to transform your pain into other people's hope? After the ceremony, they found themselves alone in the office they now shared, a space designed for partnership, with 2 desks facing each other so neither person dominated the room. Any regrets? Nicholas asked, hand resting on her growing belly. About the baby? The foundation? Marrying you? You'll have to be more specific, Tamara teased. About how we started. The manipulation, the lies, the public nightmare. She considered the question seriously, looking around at the awards on their walls, the thank you letters from people their programs had helped, the ultrasound photo of their daughter pinned to the bulletin board. I regret the pain, she said finally, but not the destination. We had to go through hell to find heaven. He pulled her close, and when he kissed her, it tasted like promises kept and futures built on honest foundations. So what's next for the power couple changing Atlanta one community at a time? He asked against her lips. Next, we prove that love doesn't have to be perfect to change the world, she replied. Their daughter was born 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning when Atlanta's spring air smelled like possibilities. They named her Hope, not because their story was hopeful, but because hope was what they'd learned to create from hopeless situations. The delivery room photo that broke the internet showed Nicholas crying as he held his daughter while Tamara smiled tiredly from the hospital bed. The caption read, "Sometimes the most beautiful families are built from the most broken beginnings." 5 years later, when Hope took her first steps in the community center they'd built in the neighborhood where Tamara grew up, neither parent could remember why they'd once been enemies. They'd started as adversaries in a story someone else wrote. They ended as lovers authoring their own legacy. Proof that the most powerful love doesn't rescue you from your life. It gives you the strength to transform it. Tell me in the comments, what moment in this story hit you hardest? The betrayal, the choice to trust, or the decision to build something beautiful from broken pieces? And remember, sometimes the love worth fighting for is the one that makes you fight to become worthy of it.